Now we want to get dynamic. I've got a hard-coded note in here. Maybe you have multiple hard-coded notes depending on how much you copied and pasted. I don't want any hard-coded notes. I want dynamic notes. I want a note for every item in an array. So where to even start? This is note list we're dealing with, right? So I'm just going to close everything else. So LIs, these are probably the things we're going to be repeating, right? I want a new LI for everything in an array. Let's see if we can get that to work at all. Let me just, well, first of all, kind of seems like we need some, well, I need an array. I don't know if it needs to be in state or what. I'm just going to make an array. Let's not worry about state just yet. So this whole component is a function, right? All it's got in it right now is a return statement, but it wouldn't have to only have a return statement. So let's make const notes is an array here. And I don't know what a note's going to look like yet. This is a proof of concept. I'm just going to put like 1, 2, 3. So an array with 3 things in it. And for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spit out this identical LI for each one of those, just to see if I can do that much. We're breaking it down to the smallest problems we possibly can. I just want to see if I can do anything with an array. So what we saw before is I could say like notes.map, and then map, I pass in a function. It's going to get each item from the array as its argument, right? So like an individual note. In this case, we know it's just going to be the numbers 1, 2, and 3. And then it's going to return some JSX. So it could return this whole mess. So if I just, let's go ahead and put this on multiple lines. Let me go ahead and put my closing parentheses and curly brace down here, so that this is all inside there. Then I could say return parentheses, all this JSX, and would that do it? Well, actually, I don't need a return, do I? If I put parentheses here, this is still essentially a one-line arrow function. Or I could put curly braces and use return. But I don't need return if it's a one-liner. So notes.map, note. So again, here are my curly braces. So everything in between these two curly braces is a JavaScript expression I'm putting in the middle of my JSX. What's this parentheses? Oh, yeah. Let's make this a little clearer, too. So that's what this is. My map ends down here. Here's my return value. It ends right here. So you see what I'm doing? I'm not actually using note. It's just each item in the array, which right now are just numbers. So I'm just trying to get 3 notes on the page, even if they all look the same. And there we go. So as I was able to dynamically render 3 notes on the page. Now this, if you're thinking this is a bit much to put inside these parentheses, you're right. That's hideous. Anytime you find yourself doing something like this, this is screaming for a new component. The LI should be a new component. And what is it? It's a note, right? So let's make a new component called note. Capital N note.js. Import React from React. Const note equals arrow function. Before I even write my return statement, I'm going to say export default note. I'm going to return Well, I'm going to return an li, not a div. So I'll give it an li with a class of note. Or we could just copy all this in there. We know that's what we're doing. It'd make me feel better if I gave my li a class name of capital N note, just because I do that on all my components. So just paste that li as is into my return statement of my new stateless functional note component. So then this becomes a lot shorter. Worry about this in a second. So I need to import it inside note list, right? So import note from ./note. Don't need the .js. Then what can I do? How about that? For each note in the array, just spit out a note component. There. Same thing, but now note list is much cleaner looking because we broke it down. I've got some indentation issues here.
Oh, how do you do that on what scale?
Command left and right bracket. Left bracket to outdent, right bracket to indent. Or control on a Windows machine. Control right and left bracket. Indents the line you're on. If you have multiple highlighted, it indents all of them. So I like the look of that. That's much better. But we're just doing the same note over and over, right? We're not actually getting any data out of this array. This just has 1, 2, and 3. So what I want is to actually put some note data in here and have it actually use that inside the note. So let's make const notes equal to an array of objects. So I'll make an object that looks like, I don't know, ID 1, title, my note, or I don't know, y I less than 3 JavaScript, body, because it's so, oh man, I'm not gonna bother escaping an apostrophe there, because I like code and JS is code. Let's put another one in there. Title, thoughts on breakfast. What do you think about breakfast, Gabby?
I love it.
I love it. Yeah, me too. Had me some oak moke today. Watching the first episode of Black Mirror with your parents. Body. Don't. Isn't that how you do backspace? Don't. Now, I probably see the same thing, right? I see these three, because there's still 3 things in my array. Take one of them out. Goes down to 2 things. But what we want is for it to be these notes. What do we do? Note's a whole separate component. Note is a separate component from note list. My data is in note list, not note. What can I do? I have data in one component and I need it to be in another. Can't do it, give up, become a barista. Oh, I'm sorry, what? Yeah. So pass it like an argument. And what do we call? Yeah, props. Thank you. You saved me from a career switch. So I could pass a prop into note. How do we do that? They look like attributes in HTML, right? So I can have an attribute called, how about note? Attributes, or props can be strings, or they can be any JavaScript value. So what can I pass in there? I don't need to pass the whole list, do I? This is each time through the array, right? So when you call map, it's going to pass in the current note right there. So how about I just pass that one? Of course, that's the word note an awful lot of times. And those don't all need to be named the same thing, right? Here, it's just the name of my local variable inside map. Here, this is the name of my component. That's important. Here, it's the name of my prop, which is going to be important on the other side, but we can make it whatever we want since we're writing that component. And this is just the value. This is just this variable again. So note, note, note. Okay, so inside note, how do we get to that? We haven't actually done this yet. So if this were a class, just like you do this.state, you would do this.props to get to your props. This is not a class. This is a stateless functional component. So all your props actually get passed through as an argument, whether you ask for them or not. So if we just type props there, now we can get to them. So my note is now props.note. So they're just passed in as a single argument. It's an object with a key for each of your props. So I could say, instead of this garbage, what do I put there? What would you put on that line? Like you mean it. No, that's, you're close, yeah. Say that one more time. So props is all my props. And the prop, so suppose I say note equals that breakfast equals oak moke. Props will have note and breakfast in there, right? Yes, props.note.title. Oatmeal. Have you figured out what twamiches are?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not a thing. You're like, is this some breakfast food I haven't heard of?
Yes, that's what I
No, this is just me. No, this is just a weird Davy thing. Props.note.title. Yep. So inside note body, what could I do? Don't forget your curly braces there, right? You want to stick some JavaScript in the middle of the page. Props.note.body. It's just that easy. Not too bad. So our list is out here in list, of course. It's where it belongs. So I can just call map on that array. And for each item in the array, I render the note component, passing in the current note as a prop. And again, if this one were a class instead of a stateless functional component, I would do this .props.note.title. But since it's a stateless functional component, all my props get passed in as the single argument here. So it's not this.props, it's just props. Yeah, Ashman.
If it were a class, then
No. If you're not overriding the constructor, if you're not writing your own constructor, then you're fine. But if you do write your own constructor, then you have to call super. Yeah. Yeah.
For some reason, the only the title is spitting out and not the body.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of that.
So, and then for me, I mean, the title is only spitting out, the body is not even like showing up on this.
Body's not there. Okay, let's look in just a sec. I'm going to go ahead and commit this. Dynamically render notes from an array. It's a hard-coded array, but hey, one thing at a time.